There's a quiet misunderstanding that shapes the way most people move through life. It's subtle, almost invisible, and yet it controls opportunities, relationships, careers, everything. It's the belief that asking is a weakness, that if you ask for something, you expose yourself, that if you need something, you lose power. But the truth is the exact opposite. The people who get what they want in this world are not the loudest, not the most talented, not even the most deserving. They are the ones who understand something deeper. They understand how to ask, and not just how to ask, but how to ask in a way that moves people. Because asking is not about words. It's not about confidence alone. It's not about clever phrasing or manipulation. Asking is about connection. It's about clarity. It's about intention. And most importantly, it's about understanding human nature. Think about it. Every major opportunity you've ever had came because someone said yes. A job, a chance, a collaboration, a relationship. Behind every yes was a moment where someone, somewhere asked. But most people don't ask, they wait. They wait to be noticed. They wait to be chosen. They wait for permission that never comes. And while they're waiting, someone else, someone no smarter, no more talented, steps forward and simply asks, and everything changes. Because asking is not about taking, it's about inviting. When you ask the right way, you don't make people feel pressured. You make them feel part of something. You give them a role in a story bigger than themselves. And people don't respond to pressure. They respond to purpose. That's the first shift you have to make. Stop thinking of asking as a transaction. Start thinking of it as a bridge between what you need and what someone else can give. A bridge between your vision and their values. A bridge between two human beings trying to make sense of the world. Because no one gives you something just because you asked for it. They give it to you because it makes sense to them. And that's where most people fail. They ask from their own perspective. They focus on what they want, what they need, what they deserve. But the art of asking begins when you stop focusing on yourself and you start focusing on the other person. What do they care about? What do they fear? What motivates them? What do they stand to gain, not just materially, but emotionally? Because every decision a human being makes is driven by emotion first and logic second. You don't convince people with facts alone. You move them by making them feel something. And when you ask in a way that aligns with how they see the world, something powerful happens. Resistance disappears because you're no longer asking them to help you. You're showing them why it matters to them. Let me explain something that changes everything once you understand it. People don't like to be sold to, but they love to buy into something. There's a difference. When you push, people pull away. When you invite, they lean in. So the question is not, how do I get what I want? The real question is, how do I make them want to give it to me? And that starts with clarity. Most people don't get what they want because they don't actually know what they want. Their requests are vague, unclear, hesitant. And when you're unclear, people feel it. Clarity is confidence. When you know exactly what you're asking for, you remove friction. You make it easy for someone to say yes, because confusion creates doubt, and doubt kills decisions. So before you ever open your mouth to ask, you have to get brutally honest with yourself. What do you want? Not what sounds good, not what seems acceptable. What do you actually want? Because when you're clear, your energy changes. Your words carry weight. Your presence becomes stronger, and people can feel that. But clarity alone is not enough. You also need courage, because asking always comes with risk. You risk rejection. You risk embarrassment. You risk hearing the word no. And that's what stops most people. They don't fear failure. They fear rejection. But here's the truth you need to understand. Rejection is not the end. It's information. Every no tells you something. It tells you what didn't work, what didn't connect, what didn't align. And if you're willing to listen, every no brings you closer to a yes. But you have to detach your identity from the outcome. If someone says no, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means the request, the timing, or the alignment wasn't right. That's it. And the moment you stop taking rejection personally, you unlock a different level of freedom. Because now you're no longer afraid to ask. And when you're not afraid to ask, you ask more. And when you ask more, you get more. It's that simple. But there's another layer to this that most people miss. Timing. You can ask the right thing in the right way and still get a no. Because the timing is wrong, people are not static. Their priorities shift. Their circumstances change. Their emotional state fluctuates. And if you don't pay attention to that, you're asking in the dark. The art of asking requires awareness. You have to read the room. You have to sense the moment. You have to understand when someone is open and when they're not. Because asking at the wrong time is like knocking on a door that no one is ready to open. But when you get the timing right, something almost effortless happens. The conversation flows. The resistance fades. The answer comes naturally. And suddenly, what seemed difficult becomes easy. Now let's go deeper. Because the most powerful form of asking is not direct. It's indirect. It's not about saying, give me this. It's about creating a situation where giving it to you feels like the natural choice. You do that by telling a story. Stories are powerful because they bypass logic and go straight to emotion. When you tell a story, you're not forcing someone to agree with you. You're allowing them to see what you see, to feel what you feel. And when they feel it, they come to the conclusion on their own. And a conclusion someone reaches on their own is far more powerful than one you try to impose. So instead of asking for help, you share a vision. Instead of asking for a favor, you paint a picture. Instead of asking for approval, you create belief. Because belief is what drives action. And when someone believes in what you're saying, they don't just say yes. They commit. But there's something even deeper than that. Trust. Nothing works without trust. You can have the perfect words, the perfect timing, the perfect strategy, but if there's no trust, it falls apart. Trust is built long before you ask. It's built in how you show up, how you listen, how you treat people when you don't need anything from them. Because people remember how you make them feel. And when the moment comes to ask, they're not just responding to your request. They're responding to their experience of you. So if you want to master the art of asking, you have to become someone people trust. And trust is built through consistency, through honesty, through integrity, through showing that you care, not just when it benefits you, but always. Because people don't help strangers, they help people they believe in, and belief is earned. Now here's the part that most people don't expect. Sometimes the most powerful way to get what you want is to ask less, to listen more. Because when you listen, you learn. You learn what matters to people, you learn what they need, you learn where the opportunities are. And sometimes, if you listen closely enough, you don't even have to ask. Because you can position yourself in a way where the opportunity comes to you. That's the highest level, where asking becomes unnecessary. Because you've built something so aligned, so valuable, so meaningful that people want to be part of it. But until you reach that point, you have to ask. And you have to ask boldly, not aggressively, not arrogantly, but with quiet confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't demand attention, but commands respect. Because confidence is not about being loud. It's about being certain. Certain in your value. Certain in your intention. Certain in what you're offering. And when that certainty is present, people feel it. They trust it. They respond to it. So the next time you hesitate, the next time you feel that fear rising, the next time you think, what if they say no? Ask anyway. Because every opportunity you don't ask for is already a no. But every time you ask, you create a possibility. And possibility is where everything begins. There is no magic formula, no secret script, no perfect set of words. There is only awareness, clarity, courage, and connection. Master those, and you don't just get what you want. You become someone who creates opportunities. And that changes everything. And this is where most people give up too early. They ask once. And when they don't get the answer they hoped for, they disappear. They retreat. They convince themselves that the door is closed, that the opportunity is gone, that the answer is final. But it's not. Because human beings are not decision-making machines that instantly process information and deliver final verdicts. We are emotional, evolving, constantly shifting creatures. What feels like a no today is often just uncertainty, unfamiliarity, or hesitation. And unfamiliarity creates resistance. Anything new, anything unexpected, anything that disrupts our normal pattern triggers doubt. Not because it's wrong, because it's unknown. The brain is wired to protect, to conserve energy, to avoid risk. So when something unfamiliar appears, especially in the form of a request, the default response is caution, and caution often sounds like no. But here's what most people don't understand. The first time someone hears your idea, your request, your vision, they are not deciding, they are reacting. They are filtering it through their past experiences, their current priorities, their fears, their assumptions. And in that moment, you are asking them to process something new while they are still anchored in what is known. That's why repeated exposure matters. Because familiarity reduces resistance. The more someone sees something, hears something, experiences something, the less threatening it becomes. The less energy it requires to process, the more it starts to feel normal. And when something feels normal, it becomes acceptable. This is not manipulation. This is human nature. Think about anything in your own life that once felt strange, uncomfortable, or unfamiliar. Over time, through repeated exposure, it became part of your reality. What once felt foreign now feels natural. The same principle applies when you ask. The first time you present your idea, you are introducing it. The second time, you are reinforcing it. The third time, you are normalizing it. And somewhere along the way, the resistance fades, not because you forced it, but because it became familiar. But here's where it gets powerful. Repeated exposure is not about repeating the same words over and over again. It's about reinforcing the same idea from different angles. Because people don't fully understand something the first time they hear it. They don't fully connect with it. They don't fully see its value. Understanding is built layer by layer. So when you come back, you don't repeat, you deepen. You add clarity. You add context. You add meaning. You allow them to see what they couldn't see before. And with each interaction, the idea becomes clearer, stronger, more real. But there's a balance here that you have to respect, because repeated exposure without awareness becomes noise. And noise creates irritation. If you push too hard, if you repeat without purpose, if you ignore the signals in front of you, you don't build acceptance, you build resistance. So the art is not just in repeating the ask, it's in knowing how to reintroduce it in a way that feels natural, relevant, and valuable. Sometimes it's not even about asking directly again. Sometimes it's about sharing progress, showing growth, demonstrating commitment. Because when people see consistency, something shifts, they begin to take you seriously. They begin to believe that this is not a passing idea, not a temporary desire, but something real. And belief changes how people respond. Think about it. If someone comes to you once with an idea, you might listen politely, but you don't fully invest. You don't know if they're serious. You don't know if it will last. But if that same person shows up again and again and again, each time with more clarity, more progress, more conviction, you start to pay attention. Because consistency signals commitment, and commitment builds trust. And trust opens doors, so repeated exposure is not just about making your ask familiar. It's about making yourself believable. It's about showing that you are not going away, that this matters to you, that you are willing to invest time, energy, and effort into making it real. Because people don't say yes to ideas. They say yes to people who prove they are serious about those ideas, and proof takes time. Now here's another layer that most people overlook. Every time you reintroduce your ask, you are not just repeating, you are reshaping perception. Because the way someone sees your request today is not fixed. It evolves based on what they learn, what they experience, and how you present it over time. At first, they might see it as risky. Then, as they become more familiar, they see it as possible. Then, as you continue to reinforce it, they start to see it as valuable. And eventually, if you do it right, they begin to see it as inevitable. That's the shift you're aiming for. From doubt to possibility to belief. But that shift doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens through repeated exposure. Through consistent presence, through the quiet, steady reinforcement of an idea that refuses to disappear. And this is where patience becomes your greatest advantage. Because most people don't have it. Most people want immediate results, immediate validation, immediate yeses. And when they don't get it, they move on. They abandon the idea. They assume it won't work. But the ones who understand this principle, they stay, they continue, they adapt, they refine. They come back stronger, clearer, more aligned each time. And over time, something remarkable happens. What once felt like persistence begins to feel like inevitability, because people start to associate you with that idea. They start to see you as the person who stands for it, who believes in it, who consistently shows up for it. And when that association is built, your ask no longer feels like an interruption. It feels like a continuation. It feels natural, expected, even welcomed. Now let's go deeper. Repeated exposure also builds something else, comfort. And comfort is powerful because people say yes to what feels safe. Not just logically safe, but emotionally safe. And familiarity creates that sense of safety. The more someone is exposed to your idea, your presence, your request, the more predictable it becomes. And predictability reduces fear, because fear lives in the unknown. So every time you show up, every time you reinforce your message, every time you reintroduce your ask, you are reducing the unknown. You are making it easier for them to understand, to process, to accept, and eventually to say yes. But here's where it becomes even more subtle. Sometimes the yes you're looking for doesn't come as a direct answer. It comes as a shift in behavior, a change in tone, an increase in openness, a willingness to engage. These are signals. And if you're paying attention, you'll see them. You'll notice that the resistance is softening, that the conversation is becoming easier, that the door, which once felt closed, is now slightly open. And when you see those signals, you don't push harder. You lean in gently. Because at that point, the work is already being done. The familiarity is doing its job. The acceptance is building. And all you have to do is guide it forward. But there's one more thing you need to understand. Repeated exposure is not just external. It's internal. The more you ask, the more comfortable you become with asking. The more you face rejection, the less it controls you. The more you show up, the more confident you become. Because confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you build through action. So every time you reintroduce your ask, you are not just influencing others. You are transforming yourself. You are becoming someone who is not afraid to be seen, not afraid to be heard, not afraid to go after what you want. And that transformation changes everything. Because now, you're not just asking, you're embodying, you're showing through your actions that this matters, that you matter. And people respond to that energy, they feel it, they respect it, they are drawn to it. So when you think about repeated exposure, don't think of it as repetition. Think of it as evolution. Each interaction is an opportunity to grow, to refine, to strengthen your message and your presence. Each moment is a step closer to alignment. And alignment is what ultimately creates the yes. Because when the right message meets the right person at the right time, after enough exposure, enough familiarity, enough trust, the answer becomes almost effortless. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel pressured. It feels right. And when something feels right, people don't hesitate. They act. But it all begins with the willingness to stay in the process. To not walk away after the first no. To not disappear after the first hesitation. To understand that acceptance is built over time, not demanded in a moment. And the ones who understand this, they don't chase outcomes, they build momentum. They create presence, they show up again and again, not with desperation, but with purpose. And over time, that presence becomes undeniable. That familiarity becomes powerful. And that simple act of asking, done consistently, thoughtfully, and with intention turns into something much bigger. It turns into influence. It turns into trust. It turns into opportunity that didn't exist before. Because the more familiar your ask becomes, the less it feels like a request, and the more it feels like a natural next step. And when it feels like a natural next step, saying yes no longer feels like a decision. It feels like the obvious choice,